do my presentation with John the Ripper, which some of you might have heard of during NCL or somewhere else. And some of you might think, wait, isn't it supposed to be Jack? So let me go ahead and share my screen. And this should, I made some slides mostly because I thought it might help me like as I'm doing it, but eventually we'll be inside Kali Linux. So let's see, can everyone see my slides okay? Okay, cool. So John the Ripper, I'll be doing it in Kali Linux specifically today when I'm demoing it. But it's basically a pen testing tool and a password cracking tool. And what's really cool about it is it's completely free and it's really good. So you're able to use it. It used to only be like Linux exclusive, but now you could get it on, I know you could get it on Windows. I'm not sure about Mac, but I would presume you could. It's popular because it's able to combine like a bunch of password crackers all together into just the one package, John the Ripper. And it can auto detect password formats. So you could give it a specific one, like say, hey, this is an MD5 hash, or this is a SHA-1 hash. But you could also just tell it like, just brute force it until you find the hash that, you know, breaks it. And it can do that too. It can also be used to crack passwords for password protected zip files, which is kind of cool. These are the ways that I know you could get John the Ripper. There might be other ways as well. But if you have Kali Linux, it should just come pre-installed. You will need like, I can't think of the name right now, but you'll need to run like sudo if you're not logged in as the root user to get it to work, or at least I did. You could also go directly to the OpenWall site. And I think they have a Windows version there that you could download if you want it to. And then there's the official John the Ripper repo that you could get the project from. There were 3 distinct modes, single crack mode, wordless crack mode, and incremental mode. And so I think that's enough jargon. We can go ahead and get started with an example here. So I have my Kali Linux. And the first example that I wanted to try was what we were talking about with that single crack mode. You can see I'm logged in as root, but if you're logged in as like, say, just like a user, the first way that you could tell if you have John is you would want to run John and see if this comes up. Or if you're logged in as a regular user, you would want to do sudo John. So once you do that, you should get like all these options for what you could add to John in order for it to kind of know what you want it to do. For today, I went ahead and like pre-made a couple of files. So the first one that I want to show you is this crack.txt. So we'll take a look at it. And we can see it has Rowan, and then it has some kind of hash. And so I'm going to try to crack this using John. And because I obviously created this file, I know, you know, what the actual password is and all that. But say you were looking at it and you were able to figure out like, oh, okay, well, this is a SHA-1 hash. So I know it's SHA-1. And let's see, the guy's name is Rowan. So what if I just messed around with Rowan? And then, you know, maybe like for us, we would type in like, okay, capital R, and then the rest of the name, or Rowan1 or Rowan2. And we would just, you know, if we were trying to guess the password. But what's really cool is John can do that for you if you wanted to. So one of the commands you could do is John, and we're telling it to use the single crack. And then we'll tell it that the format for it is like SHA-1. And then the file that I want to crack is crack.txt. So that looks good. And then this is, I was telling everyone ahead of time, once I already have cracked it, I found out it won't like crack it again because it's like I already cracked it. So I already had the one password hash for it. So, but what you could do to check like, oh, okay, I already cracked this, is just call John show and then whatever the file name is. So here it would be crack.txt, and you can see the password for that user is Rowan, just with a capital O and a capital A.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you explain what a hash is?
Yeah. I mean, I could do my best. A hash is basically like it takes a value in and it gives out some like coded value. So that way, that might not be the best explanation, but it's like an example like that I know we used in class is, say I gave you a number and then you always divided the number by a different number and to get like a certain set of numbers. So maybe like you divide it by 6 and whatever the remainder is, you put it there. So if I gave you 7, you have divided by 6, the remainder would be 1. So then you put it in the 1 slot, and then 8 you put in the 2 slot. So it kind of takes something and it puts it somewhere else to store it. And then obviously like here, if I stored my password like this, it wouldn't be very safe at all. So by hashing it and putting it somewhere, unless people know how to reverse the hash or what that hash means, then it means basically nothing. Like when we took a look at this probably means like nothing to any of us because it's just a random hash. But John's able to break it. But what you might
How
be
are you? How are
What?
you able to identify it, like as a SHA?
It's kind of a way of knowing. That's kind of what my next example goes into. Because what I was going to say is most of us, it's great to be like, oh, okay, well that's Shaw, but that means nothing for me because I need to crack a password. So for the next example that I'm going to use, I'm actually going to try using my other non-root account because it might be easier. So for those of you that are on using a Linux machine, if you call this command /etc/shadow, it'll show you, it should show you like the information about your machine. Mine's giving me a couple of issues because I'm, not the admin right now. So if you called sudo John and then you called it on the file that goes back to your machine, you'll see it. Okay, it's trying to crack. It's going through. So it's almost done. And now it's running through the dictionary, but I'm not too worried about it running through the dictionary because I know that my password is pretty simple. But basically what it's trying to do is it's trying to get all the possible passwords that it could be. But I'll go ahead and stop it because, I'm not too worried about it. But if I want to see like, okay, well, how far did it get? I could call that show command that I was showing you guys earlier on that same spot. And we'll see that it said, oh, your password is Cali for the Cali user. And then the last example that I wanted to show was using a zip file. So here's like a zip. So it's a secret. And if we see, I can't get in, unfortunately. Now, because, sometimes we maybe make a file and we lock it and then we forget how to unlock it or something, or we forget the password. So okay, let's see what John can do. So if I call, I think it'd be sudo zip to John, or first, what I want to do is I want to call ls on my, man, I feel like one of those teachers that like is doing the presentation on Zoom. Anyways, so first I want to find out where this file is. So it's on my desktop, right? So I call ls, it shows me everything. Okay, let's go to the desktop. And there we go. I have my secret.zip. So now I'll try calling zip to John and you want to tell it what file that you want to pass it into or perform it on. So I want to do it on that secret.zip file, right? And then where do I want that output? Maybe like a password.txt or something. So this is where I'm going to put whatever John gets from that zip file. And I forgot sudo. Let me just add that real quick. Okay. So now I have a password.txt. And if I look at it, it doesn't really mean a lot to me because it's all kind of random. Okay, so John the Ripper FAQ, go to frequently asked questions. And you know, they have like a bunch of random different questions. So using, give me 1 second. To John. What are you trying to run, John? But this is kind of like where you would go, is you would go to your, they have this official website where you can use, they have like frequently asked questions. They have a couple of like examples and stuff. So this is like when I had issues on like the previous one, I would go here and then, you know, I could follow the FAQ and figure it out. And then you see like you could get like different word lists in case you wanted to run a dictionary against like a password cracker to like try to figure out, you know, common passwords and stuff like that. And I think that's all that I have. This was the one, I saved one demo to do live. And I was telling, I think Tim before this, that I was nervous that it might not work because the other two I had already done. But this is kind of like how you would figure it out, is you could go here and troubleshoot. And it doesn't take too long, but I won't have you guys sit here and watch me try to troubleshoot what my error is. But usually it's relatively nice. I mean, it's kind of tough to use sometimes because it's in like this very texty format where it's just like this long blob of text that you have to read. But it's pretty helpful. And then also I put in the slides, like a couple of YouTube videos that I was using to try to help me like when I was doing my examples. And so overall, it's a pretty useful tool. And, you know, if you wanted to learn a little bit more about it, you could, these are kind of some of the resources that you could use to try to find out more. And yeah, that's what I have.